In the late 1980s, Zimbabwe was still basking in the glory of independence, a beacon of hope for Southern Africa. The country's new leaders promised progress and prosperity, and for many people, the dream of a better future seemed within reach. But beneath the surface of Zimbabwe's newfound freedom lurked a scandal that would expose the dark side of power. This is the story of the Willowgate scandal, a scandal that shocked the Zimbabwean people, revealing corruption at the highest levels of government. But this wasn't just a singular event. It was a turning point that left an indelible mark on Zimbabwean politics. In this video, we'll see how this scandal shaped Zimbabwe's future, giving the citizens a sort of glimpse of what would become of the country and how that all relates to the Zimbabwe of today. To understand the Willowgate scandal, we need to start with the context. The year was 1988, and Zimbabwe, only 8 years into independence, was still filled with hope. Led by Robert Mugabe, the country had experienced economic growth and stability after years of colonial rule. Public institutions were being rebuilt, and the government was keen to promote local industries. Which brings us to Willowgate Motor Industries, a state-owned car manufacturer established to reduce dependence on imports. So, even after Rhodesia transitioned to majority rule and became Zimbabwe, Willowgate Motor Industries remained functional. The Zimbabwean government had devised a scheme to offer its vehicles at subsidized prices to senior officials. On paper, it was a good idea, stimulating local production while providing affordable transportation for the country's leaders. But as they say, power corrupts. What began as a policy for national development turned into a hotbed of greed and deceit. In October 1988, Zimbabweans were stunned when the Chronicle, a state-owned newspaper, published an explosive investigative report. The story revealed that several senior government officials were abusing the Willowgate car scheme. These officials were buying vehicles at the heavily discounted price set by the government and reselling them on the black market for massive profits. And this wasn't just a handful of rogue actors. High-ranking ministers were implicated too. Among them were Maurice Nyagumbo, one of the country's liberation heroes, Enos Nkala, the then Minister of Defense, as well as Frederick Shava, the Minister of State. These were trusted leaders, and their betrayal of the public trust struck a deep chord. The scandal laid bare the extent of corruption within the government, and what made matters worse was the brazenness of the scheme. Officials weren't just enriching themselves, they were doing so at the expense of ordinary citizens. Vehicles that were meant to serve Zimbabweans were instead being hoarded for profit. The public outcry was immediate and intense. In response, President Robert Mugabe established the Sandura Commission, an independent body tasked with investigating the scandal. For the first time in Zimbabwe's young history, high-ranking officials were being called to account. The commission's findings were damning. Several ministers were implicated, and political careers were ruined. Maurice Nyagumbo, overwhelmed by the shame and public disgrace, would unfortunately take his own life. Others, like Frederick Shava, were convicted, but later controversially pardoned by President Mugabe. This raised serious questions about the president's commitment to justice. While Mugabe publicly denounced corruption, his reluctance to pursue meaningful reforms suggested otherwise. Critics have argued that his inaction allowed a culture of impunity to take root in the country. Willowgate wasn't just a scandal, it was a turning point. For many Zimbabweans, it shattered the illusion of an incorruptible government. The revelations laid bare a troubling reality, which was that power and privilege often shielded those at the top from accountability. Instead of serving as a cautionary tale, the scandal seemed to set a precedent. Over the decades, Zimbabwe has seen numerous corruption scandals, from the looting of diamond revenues in Marange to the misuse of COVID-19 relief funds. In many ways, Willowgate marked the beginning of a pattern, a cycle of corruption, public outrage, and minimal consequences. It also normalized the return of disgraced officials to political office. Take Frederick Shava, for example. Despite his involvement in the Willowgate scandal, he later re-entered government, serving in senior positions. The parallels between Willowgate and present-day Zimbabwean politics are hard to ignore. Just as officials profited from the Willowvale car scheme, today's leaders are implicated in scandals involving gold smuggling, illicit financial deals, and misuse of public resources. The Willowgate scandal serves as a grim reminder of what happens when power goes unchecked. But it also highlights the importance of a vigilant public and a free press. Zimbabwe's future depends on learning from its past and breaking the cycle of corruption and demanding true accountability. As the country continues to grapple with corruption, the lessons of Willowgate are still vivid in the minds of many. Please do share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, or subscribe to the channel. I'm Simon Bayani, and this is Africa in Retrospect. Cheers for now.